Hello and welcome back to Mark's NOTCAST. It is number 466 or thereabouts. It is the 10th of November 2025, and this is a long-running series of a middle-aged man talking to his mobile phone about records he likes, loves or merely owns. And it's not a podcast, it's a NOTCAST, so that is why it's called that. And if you're a repeat viewer, welcome back, lovely to see you. And if you're a new viewer, well, laughter and funny material will be dubbed in later, as Bill Hicks said. We should be careful about quoting Bill Hicks because not everything he has done has aged fantastically. And for those of you who haven't seen any of these before, normally about 45 minutes to an hour whilst I talk about something that interests me, and judging by my viewing numbers, not many other people. And today, the something that interests me as part of my chronological run through popular beat combos and their discographies is the 6th studio record released by British pop band The Blurs in 1999. The album is called 13. It is my favourite Blur album and the best one. And you will not see any kowtowing to popular conception here that Parklife is all that and a bag of chips. It isn't. This is my favourite Blur album, and I don't care who knows it. In fact, I've just told you twice. That's the case. So 1999, the end of the century, the millennium is fast approaching and everything is in a weird state of flux. As you've seen from previous episodes, and I've talked about Pulp's This Is Hardcore and Oasis's, was it Oasi, depending on your point of view, their Be Here Now album, which signalled, the death knell of Britpop on the morning of the 22nd of August, 1997 or thereabouts. We were in a post-Britpop world and we didn't quite know, what is the world going to look like? What's it going to be? Is it going to carry on forever, or is the bubble going to burst? Well, as is always the case, the first signs of doom in any band's career are solo albums. And here is Graham Coxon's debut solo LP, The Sky Is Too High, released in 1998, which I think might have Dave Rowntree on it on drums. If not, he's on the subsequent solo album, The Golden D, released in the year 2000, when the band called themselves affectionately, that is Graham Coxon's solo band, called themselves the Roxons. One of the questions that one should always ask is about, why do solo albums exist? Is it because of ego? Is it because of boredom? Is it because some guy was fucking around with a Porter studio? Well, according to Graham, this was mostly written bored at 2 a.m. when I wasn't fully mentally happy, so they all turned out folkish, with a massive Syd Barrett influence. And if you doubt the Syd Barrett influence, you should watch the documentary about Syd Barrett that was released in around the year 2004 on DVD, and it features Graham Coxon performing Syd Barrett's Love You, and it sounds just like a Graham Coxon song. And it's executed probably as competently as Syd Barrett did it as well. The Sky Is Too High. Well, why does it exist? And for this album is the product of sobriety. What you'll find is that when people are sober, they don't have a drinking problem as such, they have an addiction problem. So they trade one addiction for another addiction. In Graham's case, this was making lo-fi 4-track demos at home and sticking out records as a way of occupying his time. As he described it, the songs started to pile up in my head, and much like I think You're So Great on the Blur self-titled album from 1997, he was just writing, recording complete songs at home on his own, and when he had enough of them, felt that it was time to put out a solo LP. The interesting thing about solo albums is there a part of someone's personality that can't be expressed within the context of the band, or is it boredom? Do the songs come from somewhere or from nowhere? What are the songs actually about? And it's fair to say, writing lyrics is not Graham Coxon's forte. Having listened to some Gorillaz albums, writing lyrics isn't Damon's forte either. Because, a typical Gorillaz lyric will be something like, hey now, I've got a car, and I'm going to drive real far, and Arnold Schwarzenegger smoking a cigar, da 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 da, purple Johnny. And you kind of sit there and go, what are you trying to communicate with this? What's your point, caller? Why are you putting that down onto vinyl? Personally, I think there should be a lyrics committee and a band name committee, where if you want to write terrible lyrics, someone has to sit down and go, Yeah, but what does it mean? Why are you saying that? What's the point? Same with band names, by the way, especially when you've got bands with names like the Snuts. No disrespect to the Snuts, but other better band names are available. So when you sit down and go, why have you called the band such a terrible, terrible name? Think, tell me now, etc. Who knows? That type of thing. Not that it happens, but it should do. And The Sky's Too High is actually, as far as solo LPs go, pretty good. It would have sold probably 10 less copies had the guy not been in Blur, because it's not the most commercial of things, and it is most definitely the product, very clearly, of its time. And its time, by the way, is 2 a.m. in a 4-storey townhouse in Camden. I like The Sky Is Too High, but I never feel the urge to listen to it again. Every time I think, oh, I should listen to that, I then think, oh, I'm actually going to listen to something that I like more. But 1998 was the year where Blur really first started to fragment, really, as such. Damon Albarn appeared on a Radio 3 broadcast of Joe Orton's Up Against It. He appeared in I think a truly terrible gangster movie called Face, which I haven't seen all of it on the grounds that I couldn't be bothered. It's not very good. And also in 1998, the band, I think, played 2 or 3 shows. One at Glastonbury and 2 warm-up shows, or maybe 1 warm-up show, one of which was at the Q Club in Birmingham, which, by the way, was haunted. And that was the second time that I saw Blur at the Q Club playing that set, the pre-Glastonbury set in Birmingham in June 1998. And they played Trailer Park, which at that point was called South Park. And I just got this tantalising vision of the band being more interesting than they'd been previously at that point. And that was telegraphed by some of the material which we heard before the album came out as well. In the private lives of the band, and I try not to pry too much into the private lives, this stuff is publicly known. Damon and his partner Justine Frischmann had split. They had a non-monogamous relationship. Damon stated that Justine wasn't there for him. Well, if you're going to have a non-monogamous relationship, what you'll find is that someone's distracted and somewhere else some of the time. They had a flat in, I think it's Holborn Road, which they were using as, or Damon was using as a base, and allegedly a place for extracurricular activities. And after Glastonbury 1998 and Birmingham 1998, the band then started in earnest recording what would become the 6th album, 13. And I don't have a vinyl copy of 13 because my vinyl weighs a ton and I don't need it, frankly. I've got plenty of records, as you've already worked out. And none of this costs me anything doing this show because it's just stuff I already own anyway. 13 was recorded in a strange and unusual way. Much like, actually, James record their songs, is that they will jam and jam and jam for hours on end. And then the band, then respective producer, will listen to that and go, I'm going to take 4 bars from that and turn that into the song. And then build a song out of the component bits, the bits of primordial musical soup, and form those into the song, beyond which then things like lyrics, choruses, verses, etc., hooks, get added. And that's how 13 was born. William Orbit would spend time listening to the day's jams, pick out the bits that he likes, and then kind of issue them, and, or more correctly, kind of mould them into some form of shape. And you can hear, a primitive version of one of these tracks, the jam from Mayfair Studios on the 11th of August 1998 of the song Battle, on the Rarities CD that's included in Blur's 21 box set from 2012. No idea if it's on streaming, if it is or if it isn't. But you can hear them from that, the material from which the album was hewn. Sometimes fully formed songs came in, but most of the time it didn't. I think the only time I can really recall a fully formed song came in for 13 was pretty much Tender. And even then, that was really Graham Coxon. And having listened to, I think, was it Mississippi John Hurt or somebody? And the song about oh my baby, oh me, oh my, came into his head. And then all of a sudden the rest of the song was built around that. Graham found William Orbit's production mechanisms difficult because Orbit was bending and manipulating and perfecting the jams and demos, putting them into loops, feeding them into Logic and other whatever sound systems that the band had at the time, and software and Pro Tools and things, and then kind of pushed it in that direction. So after 3 weeks, 21 days, the band had enough material to form an album. William Orbit was forming those songs, and Damon kind of felt that on that he then put the lyrics. Now, this is a way that is often the death knell of bands, and I think sometimes when you have a band that just kind of works separately, so for example New Order's Republic in 1993, where the singer effectively worked separately from the rest of the band's contributions could then start to feel to be a little bit second-hand, a little bit second-rate, and a little bit kind of relegated really to serve the lyrical and melodic vision of the singer, which is a dangerous place to be. For New Order, that involved renegotiating the royalty splits. For Blur, that obviously worked a little bit differently, but was still the point where there was clearly the us and them kind of approach to it. And having split up with Justine, I think Damon threw himself into the work. And did that get reflected in the work? I don't really know. Now, the album was preceded by a single. We will know this single. It is by default probably the British national anthem at this point in time, alongside Bittersweet Symphony and Spice Up Your Life. It is Tender by the Blurs, and this is one of the CDs from the singles box set from 1999 that featured all the B-sides from the respective album. Tender itself is a classic song. The nearest thing to the band's kind of just fantastic a moment. Now, if you're in a band and you make a song, and sometimes you kind of go, oh, that's it, that's the one, we've got it, we've got the great song, and for Blur, I think Tender was one of those moments where you look at each other and you go, that's it, isn't it? That's the magic. That's the bit where you get struck by lightning and something amazing happens as a result. And it is, it's just this lovely, desperate, forlorn, exhausted song about breakups. And we've all been through breakups. And every breakup, like every relationship, is unique. And every breakup, like every relationship, has some common core parts of it. Not just the 5 stages of grief, denial, acceptance, bargaining, resignation, etc. But also the element of kind of like the realization that is where you are, and the investment that you've made in the time going up to that point has ultimately not paid back. You've got memories, you've got experiences, but what you don't have is a foundation for the future. So you have to start again. And that's a good and a bad point to be. And sometimes the criteria for a breakup might be, do I see myself getting old with this person? Is it going to work? Or is there enough in the relationship and the dynamic at this point for me to think it's not going to work in the long term? And sometimes when you get to the end of a relationship, that's the point where you start to think, if I'm not going to grow old with this person, I should start and move in a different direction. And that's a conclusion that is not always easily reached. It's a conclusion that is very clearly runs through the album 13, like a stick of rock, both in Tender and in the best Blur song ever released, No Distance Left to Run. And I will thong you if you try and disagree with me on that. Tender, I think, got to number 1 in the charts, and if it didn't, it bloody well should have done. I was at the point where I was starting already to drift away from paying attention to what was in the charts, because what was in the charts didn't seem vastly important to me at that point. I kind of thought that, from my perspective, a chart position in itself is only a metric of sales on one particular week. It's not a metric of how good the song is. It's not a metric of how important the song is. It's not a metric of how many copies the song sells. It's a metric instead of one particular week on a leaderboard, how that particular song is doing. And as long as the bands that I like are able to continue to make music, make enough money making music to be able to continue to do it and enjoy doing it, chart position to me are merely a a way of achieving an outcome, and that outcome is a good, financially stable way of working that perpetuates the band's existence to the next album, to the next album, to the next album, and so on. And Tender did very well in the charts, and is, just one of those all-time classics of the genre. As a single, as is often the way, it is backed with 2 B-sides on each of the 2 CDs. I don't have the 2 CDs anymore, can't remember why, don't particularly care. One is All We Want, and the other one is Mellow Jam, and Mellow Jam turned into a track on the album, by the way. And then this French song on the CD too, alongside a video of Song 2, if you really, really wanted to be able to watch the video for Song 2 on a CD-ROM. And that is Tender. The second thing that was released from the album, and this is a little bit of a rarity, but not at the same point, is this. This is the Observer CD. In the days when bands would promote CDs or CD sales, they would shrink wrap an exclusive CD to a newspaper, and when you bought the newspaper, you got the CD. It's how Prince released both Planet Earth and 2010 albums. It's how Blur later released the Live 2009 EP. It is also how the Observer EP came out, which featured tracks from every album, I think, from the band's career. So Country Sad Ballad Man from The Great Escape. From Blur. He Thought of Cars from The Great Escape. This Is a Low from Park Life. Blue Jeans from Modern Life is Rubbish. She's So High from Leisure, and Beetle Bum taken from the album Blur. And one whole new song from the upcoming album. Boy, those Blur boys, they really treat you, don't they? That song is Trim Trab, named after a pair of Adidas trainers from the 70s. Is it good? It's okay. It's a completely inessential kind of part of the band's discography, but really exists more as a promotional consideration. And then the album itself came out. There are a number of editions to the album, but here I'm just going to present you with 2 copies. One, the limited edition packaging, and one, the standard CD edition of the album. Packaging was a big deal. If you wanted to sell an extra copy, you then did a deluxe edition that had fancy packaging in. And this is 13 in fancy packaging form. And as you will see, the 13 written there can also pass for the letter B, therefore standing for Blur. And the Blur logo is nowhere on the cover apart from on a sticker on here. And this was, just one of those things, cost an extra couple of quids. And if you wanted something silly on your shelf, you could open it. So you open the box, and what do you get? Well, you get the inside of a box, and you get some stickers, and then you get the album itself presented in a gatefold sleeve there, and the first of it is this, a copy of the album on CD in an exclusive die cut inner sleeve that opens somewhat oddly on the side. And there's 13 for you as the album, featuring photos of the band looking, let's be honest, a little bit silly. Damon wearing a hat saying war is expensive. Dave touching his chin. Graham, by the looks of it, pretending to sing into a wine bottle, and Alex there with a stand-up bass. The closest thing he has come to stand up. And then you open the and there's some 4 pictures. I don't know what those 4 pictures are. Maybe Dante's 4, maybe Blur's 4 levels of hell, or artistic representations of each member of the band. And then instead of an inner sleeve as such, you get a fold out. And the fold out features this here, a detail from a Graham Coxon painting. And on the back, a number of different variations of the B that became Blur, that became 13. And 13 was, I think, named after Studio 13, which was where the band recorded at that point in time. So let's go in to the album itself and see what else is going on. But not before we have, oh look, the postcards of the band who live at PO Box 21 in London, W10. And should you ever feel the need to stick a CD into a CD player and then stick it into your laptop and then watch some very poorly rendered low graphics of QuickTime, you can do it using Windows 98 and a Macintosh Apple. These days, of course, it probably also has a web link. Wow, those were the days when a web link was a glamorous thing, because you couldn't just type www.blur.co.uk in there. This, for some reason, was a numbered limited edition. Now, the number will seem undoubtedly, outdatedly heroic to you in the days when certain bands can sell 8,000 copies and get to number one. It is number 40,016. And that extra zero at the front implies that they're potentially made up to 1 million, or more correctly, 999,999 of these. I dare say they didn't make 1 million of these, not anywhere near. In fact, I'd be surprised if they made over 50,000 of them. And if you'd have told me they'd made over 40,000, I still would have been surprised until I looked at the number that was on the back. Still, number one albums have to be made some way. And then into the album itself, track 2, after opening with Tender, is Bugman. I love Bugman, one of my favourite tracks on it. And in fact, the remixes of Bugman, which are on the second CD single to be released, Coffee and TV, they gave Bugman to each member of the band to remix individually. So we got the Trade Styly mix by Alex. That has the filthiest bass line I've ever heard. Metal Hip Slop by Graham, which is quite good but not really vastly memorable. And then on this one, the Ex-Offender mix by Damon and Coyote by Dave, both of which are eminently forgettable. Good, bad, ugly. Nothing is as good as Trade Styly, which hurts me to say because I'm not a fan of Alex as a bass player. I don't think he's particularly good. And then we have track 3, which is Coffee and TV. Track 3, Coffee and TV, obviously a Blur classic. It's given us that great milk carton video directed by, I think, Ratchet and Spanner, who later worked on the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy film. And it's just one of the loveliest videos. It's a short film that all works on itself. And I think the world of Coffee and TV, it's got some wonderfully daft lyrics. Obviously sung by Graham, makes you think, was this originally a song for a solo album that actually blew it? No, that's far too good for a solo album. We'll have that. You know, Do I Feel Like a Chain Store? Practically Flawed. And I'm like, what a brilliant lyric that is. It's silly and direct at the same point. The first verse is pretty anti-Camden, truth be told. The second verse is about how shit England is. And having been in England all of my life as a resident, I pretty much agree. England's not the best country in the world. And in fact, there's a direct correlation between the number of flags that anywhere puts up and the shitter the country is. The more flags, the shitter it is. It's the same rule with car stereos. The louder the car stereo, the shitter the tunes coming out of it. And I've only been proven wrong once when someone was listening to Depeche Mode's Black Celebration at a pair of traffic lights in the year 2003. Every other time, it's been utter grot that's been coming out of it. For someone who's got quite a lot of records, I would have thought I would have heard music I recognise coming out of car stereos more often than I actually have. Although I did once hear a Burger King playing Joy Division's The Eternal, and that was an unexpected groovy treat, to quote Finney Tripe. So yeah, Coffee and TV, one of my favourite Blur songs. So far, 2 absolute classics in Tender and Coffee and TV. The fourth one is 1992. And 1992 captures a sense of despair, a sense of exhaustion. In fact, that's the thing that runs through the whole of the album. The album is the sound of exhaustion, of being tired, of having not very much energy, of having almost the fight taken out of you near enough completely. A sort of hopelessness, but a resignation to it as well. So the lyric to Tender, for example, isn't a case of, we're going to do this. It's more like, well, we're just going to have to get through it because that's what we're going to have to do. And it's going to be tough, and it's going to be tiring, and we're going to be exhausted, and we're going to be grumpy, but we're going to get to the end of it. It's the whole album is the sound of an end. It's the end of a century, the end of a millennia, the end of a relationship, the end of the band as a working democracy, and the end of the decade. And there's some parallels between 13 and New Order's Technique. They're both the last album of the decade. They're both the album where the band fractured after the end of it. All of the songs are about divorce and separation, whether they're obvious or not. And the whole thing has a sense of a vague despair that sits at the heart of it. And like for me, Technique is my favourite New Order album. Yeah, I said it. 13 is my favourite Blur album. And I will stand up in court and testify to anybody, swear on the Holy Bible, the Mannix album, by the way, not the New Testament, and say that is my favourite Blur record. So it gives us to track 4, which is 1992, which was a spruced up demo that was recorded in 1992, hence the title. And then track 6, or more correctly, track 6 is Bluremi. Because I've moved over Swamp Song completely by mistake, and Swamp Song track 4 was originally a B-side. It was promoted to an album track relatively late in the process, and it doesn't stand out to me because the whole of the album is a mood piece as opposed to a series of individual songs that grab you by the throat. You listen to the whole thing and it's like a tapestry sound that works together. Bluremi, the 6th track, inspired by the Sex Pistols and their very own song EMI. It's a kind of like a recognition that the band have become co-opted into a big organisation. They've become one of many different product lines being sold by a global megacorp. Thorn EMI but sold both VHS tapes and weapons and Blur albums. And then you kind of go, well, I'm part of the big machine now. There's a sense of industry that sits alongside it, a sense of being trapped inside it as an employee of an organisation, even though the working practices in Blur were very different to the working practices in, I don't know, let's say Bodgett and Scarpa joiners and plasterers, for example. And it just has that kind of, and it happens a number of ways, is you could sense the two main creative forces in the band, Graham and Damon, starting to tear each other apart. You had things like, Bugman and Blur EMI, which were big, spiky, kind of almost grotesque, crunchy things. And then Damon's umpar, stick it up your jumper, kind of, end of the pier, sea hall, flippancy, trying to squeeze its way through this abrasive, Fugazi influenced kind of alt rock which Graham was creating and which he let go completely and dominate the sound on the Golden D, his solo album from the year 2000. And it's a sound almost of a band tearing itself apart but trying not to, trying to accommodate it. One of the things that Tony Wilson said about New Order is that they are the band that compromises the most out of all the bands on the planet. And because they bend each other's visions to accommodate each other's views. And there's a sense on this album that's exactly what Blur are doing. Is it's the sound of compromise, and compromise in itself is not a dirty word. I mean, in some cases it is, but it's not in this case. And then if you're into the cassette version of the album, flip the album over, track 7, Battle. The last song written by Damon before he split up with Justine. And again, on the ambient jam version, which is on this CD in the 21 box set, features a huge jam version of it from the 11th of August 1998. And Battle is, I mean, to say it's a song is to overstate it, but it is a groove, and it is built on this rising and falling, undulating sense over a strict motif of something happening, and the sense of almost exhausting itself and collapsing at the finish line, like someone that's just run out of puff in the Daley Thompson decathlon Spectrum game, just made it just to the end barely by the skin of their teeth. We then have Mellow Song, which is next, of which the jam version of it, Mellow Jam, is on the B-side of Tender, I believe. And then we have Trailer Park, which is about the global kind of music industry and human wreckage. My girl left me for the Rolling Stones. The song which the band played at Glastonbury in Birmingham in 1998. Originally called South Park, but changed its name for various copyright-related reasons, and kind of sits as it's more of a languid groove than a song. As the album kind of like scopes into its last 3 songs, we have Caramel, which is available in ambient jam format on this CD on Blur 21, which, by the way, is Dave Roundtree's favourite Blur song. And we also have Trim Trab, which is fine, but Trim Trab is a song of wildly varying tempos and sounds, and you can almost sense the bit where someone goes, "No, Graham, no, Graham, no, Graham, not yet, not yet, not yet, now," and then all of a sudden you go, it sounds like a jumbo jet taking off as he plays this huge instrumental motif that and they go, "No, Graham, shush now, shush," and it goes quiet again whilst Damon sings. It's a bizarre kind of song with the lyric "All of us losers on the piss again," and takes its name from a 70s Adidas trainer, which Damon was apparently a great fan. I don't get sneakers and trainers. Sorry guys, they're told for walking in. I know that makes me a heathen. Sometimes the designs are really good. A couple of my friends have got some fantastic pairs of trainers that come in bright shades of green and pink and stuff. But for me, no, they're quite functional devices, but good enough apparently to give you a song title to. And then we have No Distance Left to Run. This is my favourite Blur song. It was written and recorded in June 1997 in a single session. The same ones that gave us the track Swallowed in a Heat Wave and some of the B-sides from the MOR single. It's about the boring stuff that comes as being part of a relationship, the commitment that you find yourself in, the point where you're going, I'm invested in this and this thing, and for good, for bad, and hoping to God that it works out for good. And it's a heartbreaking lyric. The idea that, then the next album was Damon Albarn talking about sunshine in a bag and Purple Johnny driving a car and all that bollocks. And you kind of go, you can make something as good as No Distance Left to Run, and you just can't be bothered. It's like going down from painting the Mona Lisa to deciding to paint the side of your house. And it's a sign of, I think, what I regard as generally an act of artistic cowardice and retreat by Damon. And as you've probably worked out, I'm not a fan of gorillas, because when you've done something as good as No Distance Left to Run, the idea is just go, nope, that's it, I'm never touching that again, and go, but that's incredible. That's one of the best breakup songs of all time. It's in my top 10. And then to go, no, I'm going to go and sing songs about Plastic Johnny driving a car, and you kind of go, oh, makes Mr. Tembo sound like a piece of shit. No Distance Left to Run is one of my very favourite Blur songs, my favourite Blur song. It's over, there's no reason to tell me I've seen your dreams, etc. What an incredible lyric, what an incredible song, what a heartfelt, meaningful statement about the shared dreams and ambitions that two people have together that then turn out to be nothing very much, or more correctly, don't become the things that they hoped they had been at the moment that they first met. It was released as the third and final single from the album. The third and final single from the album was backed with a Cornelius remix of Tender and a track called So You on one CD, and on the second CD was backed with, and let me just quickly check, the Uncle remix of Battle by James Lavelle and a track called Beagle 2. And I think Beagle 2 was designed as the soundtrack for a spaceship or a satellite or something, or a moon unit that was remote controlled driving around on the moon, because those are the kind of things that really bother somebody when they're in Blur and they're really into geeky man stuff. As previously mentioned, the box set of all the Blur singles was released before No Distance Left to Run came out as a single, and therefore this only features the remix of Tender on the B-side, so it's incomplete. That's a frustration for you if you're a record collector like me. And instead, the non-album tracks also appeared on the double CD edition of 13 that was issued in 2012. And that is French song All We Want, Mellow Jam, it being a jam version of Mellow Song. The four remixes of Bugman, then So You, Beagle 2, Tender, and a remix called Far Out of Beagle 2, which I'll explain its existence later. There's also a bonus track on the Japanese version of 13 called I Got Law, and then there was an extra single which was yet to come. I saw the band twice in that year. I saw them at T in the Park in Scotland, where they played a standard 13 set, and I saw them at Birmingham's NEC Arena, which was promoting the singles box set, and at which they played all of their singles chronologically in order. And for a while, the chronological singles release features here 2210. So 22 songs released over 10 years by Blur in an embossed case. Now look at that. That's very Spinal Tap, isn't it? None More Black. Yeah. And then on the back it says 22 singles from 10 years of Blur, even though there are only 20 CD singles in the box set. And that features, let's just quickly go through, all the singles from She's So High to There's No Other Way on one CD, and then on the second CD, 22-2, Country House, Universal, all the singles all the way up to No Distance Left to Run. And for a while, this was quite expensive to get, but I didn't pay quite a lot for it because I picked it up many years later when it was very cheap indeed in that lovely embossed gatefold sleeve. And if you don't have this, actually, if you're Blur and you need to think about, well, I should put out like a best of, maybe just do this because it's better than doing the best of Blur, which is the next release that Blur made. Because in the summer of 2000, the band announced the release of their upcoming greatest hits set-a-roo. Best of Blur. Featuring, I think it's Obit Lempic. They're doing special stylised designs of the band members, a collection of singles not in chronological order, and only 18 of them as opposed to the 22 which are on that set, and a second CD featuring highlights from the Wembley show on the singles tour when they played all the singles chronologically in order from She's So High down to No Distance Left to Run. And this was preceded by the release of a CD single, Music Is My Radar. Here is a promotional CD of Music Is My Radar in a unique sleeve there, which is from Beatwax for promotional use only. And that was a track co-produced by Blur and Ben Hillier. And then there were two CDs. There's probably from vinyl, but I don't collect the vinyl. This one features 7 Days live and She's So High live. Both of those live versions recorded for, and let me just quickly check. She's So High for the BBC on the 24th of June 1990, and 7 Days for the BBC on the 7th of June 1992, and not released anywhere else. I don't think 7 Days is on the expanded editions of the albums. That might be the only place that you get it. Here, meanwhile, the CD one is Music Is My Radar, backed with an exclusive track called Black Book. Black Book is fantastic. Should have been on the best of CD, but it wasn't. And a radio session of Headist and Into Another, transmitted on the 5th of May 1992. So again, two essential purchases there if you're into Blur. On the other hand, of course, 13 does feature Music Is My Radar and Black Book on it, if that's what you absolutely have to have. And 21, by the way, the 21 box set features on it additional tracks from the 13 sessions, an alternative version of So You, which is obviously the B-side to No Distance Left to Run, and a ambient alternate mix of Caramel, alongside an alternative version of Music Is My Radar called Squeeze Box, and a track called Jawbone, which is an alternative version of Black Book, alongside the imaginatively named 1 and 3. From sessions recorded in June 2000 as contractual obligations to add a bit of bait into Blur, the best of Blur. And Blur, the best of Blur was promoted by one whole live date by the band at the London's Royal Festival Hall for the Meltdown Festival, and Blur, the best of the radio show, a interview CD that allowed you to then also introduce various songs and pretend that the band Blur were in your studio doing an interview now, and you weren't just playing a CD of them. In fact, the year 2000 was probably best known for most people for the release of Graham's second solo record, The Golden D. This is my favourite of Coxon's solo albums because it has Jamie Thomas and Satan Gayton, and of course Oochie Woochie. Now that sounds like, oh, that doesn't mean anything. I really enjoy it because it's the sound of one man with a whole bunch of stuff just fucking about at home, having a great time, and that in itself is something. Alongside the release of the best of Blur came the band's second DVD, Blur, Just Blur, the best of Blur, featuring all these singles, all 22 of them chronologically in order, without Music Is My Radar. And because I am efficient on time, the first DVD, by the way, was No Distance Left to Run, which I've included inside my copy of Blur, Best of Blur, because I can. And No Distance Left to Run features the promo, a live version, the making of the video, interviews, and Beagle 2 space footage, i.e. the track Far Out, which is the remix of Beagle 2. Is it any good? No, not really. It's probably rare. I don't care, because DVD singles were a new and embryonic art form at that point in time. When the 21 box set was released, the band released also a DVD that features Showtime live at the Alexandra Palace in 1994 on DVD 1. On DVD 2, Singles Night for One Night Only, a film of the band playing the singles in order chronologically at Wembley Arena, the last show of the 90s on the 13th of December 1997. And I think that features every track apart from, I think, Chemical World. No, it does feature Chemical World on it, but there is one track that's not featured on here that they can't find the footage for. Luckily, the audio of that is on Blur, the Best of Blur. I forget which one it is right now. I'm guessing Charmless Man. No, it's not that. Stereotypes. Yeah, Stereotypes. So Stereotypes only exist in audio form from Wembley, even though it was filmed, because they lost the footage when they were preparing the Singles Night Live at Wembley Arena. And the Singles Night Live at Wembley Arena wasn't released until 2012, 13 years after the show, in what was prepared as a 90-minute version that TV stations could show for free to advertise Blur, the Best of Blur, in the days when TV stations wanted to show cheap live concerts so that they wouldn't have to pay for showings late at night. It's a great show, really liked it. My experiences of that particular show, the version in Birmingham, were marred by the fact that one of the people I went with had a temper tantrum and behaved inappropriately, and I had to drag them out of the crowd and tell them that if they carried on behaving like that, the security would take them out by force. And I was right to say that, and that person's behaviour was unacceptable, and it spoilt the fucking gig for me. I'm sure they had their reasons for it, but don't do that stuff in public, you know. The fact that your ex-girlfriend might be there doesn't mean you get the right to behave like that in front of anybody, thank you. Some things are not for the public eye, and effectively I had to intervene to prevent him starting a fight on somebody, which was a real waste of my time and my money at that point. It really, really was. I won't say any more than that, because I don't need to and I don't have to. DVD 3 on 21 features a TV special of the band performing 13 live at a studio at the Depot, which I've never actually been to. I think the Depot Studios, performing Blurry Am I, No Distance Left to Run, Tender, Battle, Beetlebum, Bugman, Trim Trab, Mellow Song, and Song 2. That was broadcast on various TV programmes such as Channel 4, etc., to promote 13 when that came out. So I saw the band twice during this period, once at Tea in the Park, which was a great show, once at the Birmingham NEC on the singles tour, which was, pardon me, very good but very different, and the behaviour of someone in the crowd diluted the importance and the specialness of that evening. And that was the point where then Blur followed that up with the best of, and then went into the studio to work on their next album in 2001, which is an upcoming episode, which I will do when I can be bothered. Primarily, just going to wrap up here and say 13 by Blur, which have the working titles, by the way, of Blue, and the less happy working title of When You're Walking Backwards to Hell, No One Can See You, Only God. Yeah, I can see why they didn't use that. You end up kind of looking at that and going, that's my favourite Blur album, because with 13, Blur achieved an apex of intensity, a directness of communication, and a commonality of their communication as well, which is that, unless you are incredibly lucky, every one of us has been in a relationship that came to an end, and every one of us has feelings about that. So as the album was very, very clearly about that, it worked very well in kind of articulating common senses and common feelings. And one of the things that for me is really, really important about music is that it allows us to feel that we are not alone in this world, to quote the live ad-lib from James in the song Tomorrow. And that's what music does. It flattens the distance between people when done particularly well. It makes us feel less alone in this world. It makes us feel more human, more recognised, and gives us a sense of community where sometimes we wouldn't never have had it. Now, sometimes you might think, I feel like I'm the only person in the world that's had my heart broken. And yet when you listen to songs like this, there's a sense of, not relief, but a sense of solidarity, knowing that that is not the case, that we are not alone in this, and other people feel the same way that we do. So I'm going to wrap up here. Thanks for spending 45 minutes with me whilst I talk about my favourite Blur album. If you want something that's particularly bitchy and harsh, just wait until I get to talking about the Gorillaz, and that means I'm going to have to listen to Gorillaz again for the first time in quite a while, and I can't guarantee I'm going to like that. Well, I came here to praise, not to bury, so I'm going to praise 13 as my favourite Blur album, and the Graham Coxon solo albums as particularly good, but they do sound like Blur B-sides, and the Golden D is fantastic. So thank you, and as per always, follow the Tao of Bill and Ted, be excellent to each other, take care of yourselves, and stay beautiful, beautiful ones, and I will see you soon. Thank you, and bye-bye.